She's a fashion blogger, model, and entrepreneur.
She's amazing.
The latest tips on fashion, beauty, wellness, travel, and her lifestyle. And now, here's the founder and creator of Not Basic Blonde, Olasha.
Hi, Kyle. Welcome to Not Basic Blonde podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Oya. Thank you for having me. Glad to be on Not Basic Blonde.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for being my guest.
I'm honored. I'm super excited.
Me too. And you being such a star and being the actual survivor, I'm so excited to have you on my podcast. We would love to know more. How did you get on the show? How was your life before the show?
So I actually discovered Survivor when I was in law school. COVID had hit, and my wife, but then she was my girlfriend. We started watching during COVID actually at her parents' house because we were in law school and we just happened to end up at her parents' house thinking COVID was only going to be for like a week, and then it was 3 months. So then I got hooked on Survivor, and I think I applied maybe like a year later when I actually had Christmas. I had COVID on Christmas and I was by myself in my apartment. Like COVID had come back, it was Omicron or something, and I was like, okay, I just got to apply. But I was like well into my legal career for about a year. Before a year and a half, maybe even 2 years before I even heard anything. So it was such a crazy transition going from like a new lawyer now to like still a lawyer, but kind of on reality TV. It's a weird transition.
That's amazing. And being chosen for the show, that was like hardest part too. How did it happen?
Yeah. So, they reached out to me. I think it's a pretty interesting process where, you send in an application, it's very short, but you send in a video, you tell them about yourself. And I think, for whatever reason, my video resonated with me. And then I went through the process. I was kind of late into the process, but I was sort of skyrocketed through it. And next thing you know, I'm on the island. So, I think preparing for the show and getting ready for it, the moment that they sort of reached out to me, I was lifting a little bit more. I was a college athlete, but I had sort of fallen off the horse a little bit, especially being in law school. So I started lifting a little bit more, doing a ton of endurance stuff, trying out puzzles. I don't lie in the real world, especially being a lawyer. I'm like not allowed to lie. There are ethical rules. So I had to practice my lying on my wife, telling little white lies, seeing if I could get away with it and stuff like that. I'm not the best liar still, who knows? But it was a really fun process getting ready for the show too.
But to be physically ready for the show, it's really hard and very kind of challenging. What special did you do, or like, what kind of training and how did you prepare yourself besides the endurance and other things?
Yeah, I mean, weightlifting was big, but you're training for strength. You're not necessarily training for aesthetics. I think a lot of people now, especially when I left college, even myself, I was sort of training, to look good, for lack of a better term. But I switched up my training regimen to try to get as strong as possible. And that came with putting on a fair amount of weight, but like I tried to put on as much muscle as possible at the beginning. And then as I sort of got about a month and a half out, I started to cut down a little bit so I would still maintain my strength, but then also be a little bit leaner. But then the moment before the show comes up, about 2 weeks, that's when I just started eating a ton of junk food, a ton of burgers and stuff like that, because I had to put on as much fat as possible. Because what people don't realize is when you're not eating, when you're starving, the first thing to go is the fat, not the muscle. So if you don't have any fat, like if you're just looking good on TV, you're jacked up, you're ripped, you're lean, the first thing that's going to be start to eat away is your muscle, and then you have no energy anymore. So I had sort of fat reserves. I was eating McDonald's for like 2 weeks straight. My wife was like, what is going on? But it helped me, but I think because I had the fat reserves that got eaten away at first, and then by the time I'm in the middle of the show, middle to the end, I got my muscle left. Obviously, I'm still struggling, but I think it was a good advantage to have.
So you won $1 million and you got lean.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you've seen the video of me telling my wife that I won
Yes.
$1 million, and she like lost it, and then also she was like, "You're so skinny," and I was cut. I was looking good, best I'd looked since college for sure.
How do you feel to win $1 million and win such a challenging Survivor?
Yeah. I mean, it feels incredible. To be honest with you, it's set in, but it still doesn't feel real. Like it's not like, this amount of money, it's life changing, right? Like I'm taking care of my parents in a way that I haven't been able to before. Obviously, my wife and I have this like awesome sort of nest egg to start our like marriage and our life off with. And just to feel that way and to not feel the pressure of sort of everything that I felt in my life before financially, like always sort of feeling on edge. Will things fall apart? Am I going to be okay? Like that feeling being gone is incredible. And I think that stuff sort of went away, like not thinking the bad thoughts anymore. That went away. But now that I'm, gosh, it was in May. So I guess what am I, 4.5, 5 months out now? Now I feel like it's not even like putting the bad stuff away, but thinking about the good things that are ahead and thinking about what like investments look like, or also just like having the thought cross my mind, money aside, like I want Survivor. Like this is a show, as I was just talking to you, Olia, where I fell in love with the show 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe. And I never thought that now I would consider myself like a peer of like some Survivor winners. So now I'm sort of transitioning because it's so fresh into just like enjoying that I did this thing, enjoying that I got to have this experience with my castmates, enjoying the $1 million and feeling safe and comfortable and everything that comes with that too.
And that's amazing. How did your life experience and your background shaped your approach to the game?
Yeah, yeah, so my life experiences, I've had a ton of them. I think people always ask me, how did being a lawyer help you with Survivor? And I am a lawyer now. I've been an attorney for the last 4.5, 5 years. And I definitely think there's so many skills that come with being a lawyer that help me with Survivor: communication, problem solving, which was constantly sort of showcased on the show, just like fact finding and being able to sort of read people. I think a lot of that stuff is stereotyped to be with being an attorney. But I also always talked about how, I was pretending to be a teacher on the show, but I actually was a teacher before I went to law school. And I think that a lot of the skills that I got from teaching, I taught at a boarding school for 2 years. I taught at a juvenile detention center, a charter school connected to a juvenile detention center during the summer. And just working with kids and tailoring your lessons plans to each and every one of them and learning how to be the best communicator with each and every individual kid. And those skills that came with that, sort of public speaking every single day. Whereas as a lawyer, you only get to do that every now and then. I think just the people skills that I got from being a teacher not only helped me, transition to the law and made me a better lawyer, but I also think it made me a better Survivor player, because at the end of the day, when you're out there, the experience of having to tailor a message to each and every individual kid, it also works with your castmates, right? Everybody is out there they want to win the money, but they're out there for different reasons, different motivations. They want to have fun in different ways. And I think a lot of that, I felt like a teacher again, kind of thinking about how can I be the best person for each and every person on the island. I think just also growing up in very diverse areas, not necessarily diverse areas, but myself, my parents, I went to private school and a scholarship. I grew up in a like lower to lower middle class immigrant household in Roanoke, Virginia, though. My family's from New York. My dad's from South America, but I grew up in Southern Virginia because we moved there when I was little. And so I constantly felt like I was pushed in between so many different communities: Black communities, white communities, affluent communities, and not so wealthy communities. And I think that having to navigate all of those different social spaces also really helped me in Survivor, because I have a lot that I can relate with a lot of different people.
That's amazing that social skills and background really help you as well.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely, sometimes you go through stuff in life and you're like, why am I having to be the one to deal with this? And then next thing you know, you gain skills from those experiences and situations, and they help you down the line in some other way.
Oh, that's like definitely important because so many challenges sometimes we go through in life and we get upset because, we don't like those challenges and it's not the best. It is totally random. And then all of a sudden we actually can use those challenges and
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can apply
100%.
them. How accurate is the TV edit and what you actually did on the show?
I mean, I think it's very accurate. I think that the Survivor team does a phenomenal job with casting people who are going to be true to themselves on the island, and I think depicting the stories very well. I think if the only thing people always ask me, or when they meet me in real life, they always say, "Wow, like on the show you were so serious, and in real life you're way more hearted and like comical. Like you joke around a lot more than we thought." And I think that's pretty funny. Is I kind of saw myself being sort of lighthearted on the show, but I think a lot of the stuff that you saw of me was um, strategic conversations or weighing decisions that I had to make in the game. Whereas in the real world, I'm very much more so lighthearted. I don't like to take myself too seriously. That's not too common for attorneys. But I definitely think that that's sort of how I view myself. So that's definitely something that I think doesn't come across as well on the TV screen as it does in real life, is my humor and everything in between.
Well, it does when you talk to you because you're very nice and you can definitely see that on TV as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And as far as support, all your family, I'm sure they were cheering for you and like you missed them so much while you were away. Like, how did it feel for you? Did you have a lot of support or how did it feel?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny. So I mentioned that, thinking about my not so immediate family, I mentioned that I discovered Survivor because of my wife's family. My mother-in-law, Susan, is actually the one who started watching Survivor in her family when my wife was really little. Her and her two other sisters, Susan, their mom used to cook rice for them on Thursday nights. Now Survivor's Wednesday, but I think it used to be Thursday. And they used to have like family gatherings and watch Survivor together, like eating rice and nothing else, which I think is so cool. But she's the one who kind of got me into the show. And when I was going through casting, was like my number one sort of cheerleader with this type of stuff, along with my sister-in-law Hannah, my sister-in-law Grace, like my father-in-law. They were all super pumped up for me, and my own family, right? Like my blood family, they were so excited too. I mean, it's so different. It was a different experience with my wife's family and my family because my family didn't know anything about Survivor, and but they came to love it. Both as I was going through casting, they watched season 46, they watched season 47. Obviously, that was filmed. They were watching that live after I'd been back from Survivor, but they were watching season 47, Rachel's season first, and fell in love with Survivor then. And then during my own season, I think it allowed me to develop a new relationship with my mom in a lot of ways because we never really talked about like TV or like lighthearted stuff. It was always like business or church or how's work going. And now I have this new friendship with my mom that's predicated on Survivor and talking about it. What should somebody be doing in this episode, right? Now she's watching season 49 and like is like bringing up different like criticisms of different players and also like praises of different players and the moves he likes. And so that's been really cool. And while I was out on the island itself, yeah, I mean, my family couldn't have been more supportive. I think that they knew that I was going to go out there and be myself and try my best. I don't think everybody expected for me to win. Not because of anything with me. It's just a very hard, difficult game for so many reasons. And I think that, yeah, the support has is still been here.
That's the best part.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
And also, it's definitely mentally hard besides physically, and you have to have a strong mind besides being athletic. How did you do it? Like mentally, did you know you will win, or were you determined, or you know?
Yeah, it's funny. My wife always used to say, like, I don't expect you to go out there and win. I know that you can, but this is a game, especially guys, or rather competitors who are maybe a little bit more athletic or social and stuff like that, like usually get cut somewhere in the middle of the game. So I kind of went in, I had high expectations for myself, but in the same manner, I had reasonable expectations because I know the nature of the game. You could be a good player and you could get cut at any phase of the game for so many different reasons. So I think I just visualized myself getting to stages. I visualized myself. I had one of the worst first days, and it sort of messed up my visualization. But the way I thought about it is like you got stage one, stage two, stage three, like beginning of the game, like middle where the meat is, and like you're like sort of like having to make moves into these things into the end game where you kind of have to be flawless in a lot of ways. At least from what I've seen on TV. I'm not saying I'm flawless by any means, but I've always visualized myself going into the game like, okay, if I can just get to stage one, then I know I can sort of get my past stage two and so forth. And that's how I viewed it. And towards the middle of the game, I was like, I know I have a shot at this thing. Like I got this if I just sort of like do what I need to do and what I've always thought about. But going into the game, I definitely would be a liar if I said that like the only thing I wanted to do was go out there and win. That was my end goal for sure.
Wow. And of course, you use the manifestation, the power of manifesting to
Oh
win.
yeah.
You
Oh
have
yeah.
to
It's crazy how
visualize
you
it.
think about it. Like I envisioned myself with that immunity necklace on. I envisioned myself, finding an idol and like making friends, right? Like that was the thing that I was really like the most worried about. Like I've been good at making friends my entire life. Like, can I do that here on this island? And it worked out.
What was the most challenging part?
I think just being away from family, and I mentioned everybody, but I forgot to mention, obviously my wife was my number one supporter. So being away from her, we were engaged at that time, and being away from her when we were sort of getting ready to take this like next huge step in our life, was really such a tough but like fascinating sort of experience and experiment in terms of like what is it like, being away does really make the heart like grow fonder, or whatever it is that phrases. But then also my two dogs. Like I have my oldest dog, she's 12, and my youngest dog, Rue, she's 2, but then she was like still even more of a puppy, like 1 years old. And it was just really tough to be away from them. I thought about them every day in a way that like you don't really do when you're, or at least I didn't at the time in the real world, like, think about them as much like during the day when I'm at work and doing things. And then now they're like, I think from that experience, always on the forefront of my mind, as well as my other family members, of course. And it's funny, I actually had a belt on the show that had little chew marks in it, from my dog, Rue. And I would always like rub the chew marks whenever I was like feeling down or lonely or something like that. But I'd be a liar too if I didn't say that my castmates, and the conversations and the relationships you build out there, they definitely make it a little bit easier, to miss home, I guess.
And it's also you spend time with random people on the island in like in the middle of nowhere and you have to survive there. It's really challenging, it's really hard. What helped you the most to overcome this?
I think just people. I think this is what, I think this is what people don't realize. I always bump into people on the side of the street, and you kind of get like three buckets. Some people who aren't interested in applying but enjoy being a fan. Some people who are massive fans and they are thinking about applying but they don't think they can do it. Up, I guess I got some balloons going on Zoom. And then the third is like people who have applied. But the second bucket, the people who are big fans but they don't think they can do it, I don't really understand it, because if you're a massive fan of the show, then you realize if you look at the 18 people that are on every single cast, or 20 or 24, whatever it may be, um, there's tons of different types of people in terms of shape, background with survival, motivations and like grit. But like the best stories are the people who have no business out there being in the jungle and they succeed. And I think from being out there and being in the thick of it, with my other castmates, you realize it's kind of like inherently it's core for people to, like, when you have a problem or when you have something that is going on that is bad or foreign or weird, the first thing that people do, in zombie movies or whatever it may be, apocalyptic movies, alien movies, is they get together. You get a core group of people together and you figure it out. And I sort of noticed that on the show, is that like I was scared, of course, of like how my survivor skills were going to be and whatever it may be. But like a lot of people other felt that way too. And what ends up happening is you just lean on each other. You try your best. Things don't go always right, but eventually you get the hang of it. And I think that's the really cool thing about Survivor, is it gives you that opportunity to try. And in order to try, you need to do it to the best of your capabilities with the people around you. It's a very far-fetched answer, and I feel corny saying it sometimes, but it really does. If like you don't think you can do it, I think you're lying to yourself, because you're also doubting the other people that you're going to be put on the island with.
A blind survivor, but also in life, sometimes we don't even know our own, like what we are capable of. Sometimes I mean, not sometimes, most of the time we are capable of way more than we think we are. And
Yeah.
we are afraid sometimes to go beyond our limits, but I guess our only limits we have, it's in our mind.
Yeah, and that's why I like, when you reached out about the podcast, I like the title of the podcast. I like sort of what you're going for, because like I think on top of that, sometimes you put limitations on yourself, but then sometimes you're also put into stereotypes or boxes, like, basic blonde, right? There's been tons of people on Survivor who would be considered basic blondes, or like, too beautiful to be out on the island, or all of these things that people, these phrases that people use, and they succeed. And I think there are tons of different people, you hear the I'm from Jersey, I've never camped before, or I'm abrasive, I don't get along with people. And next thing you know, by episode 3, they're out there doing it. And I think that's the beauty of Survivor. And I think it goes along well with your podcast image, because like people don't expect for basic blondes to be in certain business areas, or to be able to do certain things. But next thing you know, you do them and you show them wrong. And it's a really cool experience to have. And I don't mean to speak for you, but I obviously looked at your podcast and stuff like that, when I was considering coming on. And I think that's it meshes well with the message that Survivor brings us to, I think, at least as far as I see things.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, definitely. That's why I called my brand not Basic Blonde, because, I had more than just a blonde to show up for. And it's mostly like celebrity entrepreneurship podcast, and I have background in business. So that's why, it was my main goal.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's really cool. And it shows other people who might not think that they can do things that they can, and that's a big part of it as well, is like just being in the space, being in the room, being in the business room, being on the island, and having other young people or maybe people who are your age see that what you're doing, I think is like a big part of this and why it matters, I guess.
Thank you so much. And I know like the biggest point you mentioned that we should not stereotype people. And that's what I always say, and that's what I always promote with my brand. Like be unique, be yourself, never basic. Don't judge because you never know what someone is going through, what's going on in their life. And I just learned throughout my career and throughout my Instagram career that you can't just like judge a book by its cover because there is more to it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's going back to what we were talking about earlier, like with the teaching thing. That's something that I learned with teaching because kids don't always express themselves or try, and I won't ramble, but like, sometimes you have to like pull it out of them. But and like a kid could have a bad day and you could have no idea why. And at first you kind of want to be like, well, why is he acting like that? Like, this sucks. Like, why is he being like that? But then you hear something from their parents about what happened back home. And like just like sort of being conditioned that way, I approach that on the island too, right? Everybody's got their own narratives in their head. They've got lies being told to them from different directions. You got anxieties. You got so many different layers of crap going on in your head. And, I think being able to sit back and listen to somebody in these moments of like severe stress and like panic can go a long way with building relationships that can sort of go far into the game instead of just judging off the bat and being like, I got to vote him out. Like, so you got to see the opportunities in every sort of like player and person.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the moment you kind of found out about the show to the moment it all started recording and you went there, how long did it take? Like a year, more than a year?
For me, my process was probably like 4 or 5 months, maybe 5 to 6 months, I want to say, but not longer than that. Not longer than half a year for sure. Maybe even shorter, if I'm being honest. Probably 4.5 months. But some people have been in the casting process for years. Some people, get cast within weeks. So I think the casting team always does a good job of just saying apply. I think they have a set regiment amount of time you should apply, like maybe like once every half of year. Maybe you apply twice a year or something like that. I don't know. You have to look at the website for that stuff. But the process is different for everybody. But like, I do really do think they do a good job of like having everybody on their own certain timelines that work. And like each season, they always say is a puzzle piece. And I do think they do a phenomenal job of making sure that the people on that island will mesh well together, play good games together, like have a good game entirely, and also like make a good season. So that also sort of plays into the process, whether they know that you're going to be on the show, but maybe you'll fit a different season sort of better too. It's really fascinating, and I have no idea how it works behind the scenes, but I'm impressed every time I see a new season of Survivor.
Yeah, I love that show, but I'm also impressed by people who go on the show because I always admire everyone. It's definitely very challenging and they have to survive there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just with anything you can find.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough.
Which moment of the game do you think defined your, oh, yeah, which moment in the game defined your season?
I think for me, um, the moment that I think sort of defined myself within the season and moving forward, I think Camilla and I playing the idol together really kind of was like a defining moment where we knew that we were going to work together. We're locked in, and we knew that we were good at it. And I think that we sort of carried that with us through the game. That sort of like pride. Up there goes my dog. The sort of pride and ability to like know that we can like do this and do it well, and and also like to play with somebody who likes to take risks. So that was, I think, the defining moment in my season.
Yeah, it was definitely challenging, but also how did you balance to be likable and to make cutthroat moves?
I think you really just kind of have to show people who you are. I think on my season, I played the middle, and a lot of people knew that or thought that I was with them, and I was at a lot of times. And so, but then you have to make decisions, and you have to cut somebody, and like at the end of the day, somebody's name's got to be written down on Porchman. And I think at Final Tribal, I did. I think the question that people probably had in their minds for me was Kyle ever really with me? Did he actually really have love for me in any way? or was he just playing the game to the hardest extent? And there's a little bit of balance to both of those because the people that I love and I'm playing the game for the most are the people back home. But of course, I had love for everybody on the island that I played with too. So it's just showing them. Like you have to play the game to the best of your ability, but then you also have to show them at the end of the day, like this is who I am as a person. I wasn't lying to you entirely because surprise, I am a lawyer. But I wasn't lying to you as to my personality and who I am and the conversations that we had. And those did not mean any less to me just because I voted you out. It's a very tough thing to do, but I'm glad that I was able to do it. I think it helped me out big time with the win.
That's incredible. What was your biggest takeaway from the show?
My biggest takeaway from the show, honestly, was it's to a degree what we talked about earlier, Olia, about, the challenges that you go through in life and like whether they matter or not. Like as I was sort of moving through my legal career, teaching, parts of college, I think I constantly asked myself, like, for lack of a better term, is the bullshit that I've gone through in life, like, is it worth anything? Having to sort of be different in different spaces and struggling to figure out who I am and whether people will accept me or like me, or care for me in a way that I feel as if I've cared for other people. And it's been tough, I think, because of like wealth, race and ethnicity and culture differences that have like been apparent in different spaces, and a lot of other things. I think have made sort of those social navigations tough for me, but also useful for me in a lot of ways. And I going into Survivor, I was like, does this stuff matter? Are these skills that I have something that are in my head, or can they further me in life? And will people recognize those and actually still care for me or like want to be my friend? And I think winning Survivor there was no other thing in this entire world besides winning Survivor and playing that game that is so nuanced and predicated on culture and relationships and acceptance and competition, that could show me and give me that stamp of approval that the things that I've gone through do matter. And I'm really proud of myself for that. And I think that hopefully other people who have been in my sort of circumstances and different environments and stuff like that, and sort of forced to be different in different places, will know that like some of the hurt or pain that they're going through right now might pay off later down the road. Very long-winded way of saying that, like, I'm just really glad that Survivor showed me that people like me for who I am.
I love that. And I always take it as a lesson, like any challenge I go through in life, I always take it as it will help me somewhere down the road, and I'm going through it because I need to, because it will help me to get to the next level.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the goal, right? Is to progress as a person, to be happy, but like, feel as if you're able to sort of continue to better yourself, I guess.
True. What is your biggest advice you received in your life?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, I think that the best, I pull from one of my high school coaches, and he said, like, if you say you're going to do something, do it. And this wasn't like any sort of speech. It wasn't any sort of like, assembly or anything like that, or like pump up talk. It was literally just a conversation I had with him where I promised that I was going to do something for the team. I tried, but I sort of failed, and I like didn't follow up, and I didn't end up doing it. And he was like, "Hey, man, like, it's okay, but like, if you tell me you're going to do something, you need to follow through and do it." And that's always resonated with me. Coach Balderas will remember this, but I think that's sort of how I view things. Like, I think there are part in times of my life where like I'd overpromise things or feel like I was overextended or like give my word and then like can't like deliver. And now I think at this stage of my life, I'm still working on it, but it's like if you tell somebody that you're going to do something, you got to follow through with it, and including yourself, right? If you say you want to do this, you want to be disciplined, consistent, you want this for yourself, for your family, like you have to complete that promise to yourself, and give yourself that respect too. So that's probably the best advice I've been given, I think.
I love that. It also goes back to discipline as well, because discipline is everything. If you are determined and disciplined, you can achieve anything. And sometimes many people, it's been proven that some people have no talent and then they have determination and they succeed. And some people have so much talent and they don't have any discipline and they, fail. So
Yeah, it's a tough balance. That's what I call it. The most average guy you'll ever meet. Oh yeah, but yeah, I'll work for it. I'll work for it. The best average guy you'll ever meet. That's what I said on the
I
show.
don't think you're average what you accomplished, and you definitely worked hard for everything. So
Well, thank you. And likewise, obviously.
Thank you. How has your life changed since leaving the show and personally hold on, sorry.
No, no problem.
How has your life changed since leaving the show personally and professionally?
Yeah, personally, I left the show. I got married about a month and a half later. It wasn't like a shotgun thing. We were engaged on the show, and the wedding was set for September. So I actually just celebrated my 1 year anniversary with my wife Maggie, which was incredible. And so marriage itself, and I sort of alluded to this earlier, but like having like this $1 million prize and these new friends that come from the show and this new community, it's been life changing in such a cool way that I never thought I would sort of like start off my 30s in with like the love of my life and like, to be financially sound and sort of doing that and embarking on that partnership. Um, and professionally, I'm still a lawyer. I actually, I worked while I was on Survivor, I worked for a judge. When I got back from Survivor, I came back to my old firm and I did white collar criminal defense work and like investigations and stuff like that. And I'm actually starting a new job next week. I'm going to Warner Music Group. So I'm going to be doing music law, a little bit of soft IP work and litigation work still, but doing it for an entertainment company, a record label. And I'm really excited about that. I think it'll be a really cool way for me to still learn as a lawyer, and also be in a really cool industry working with, really accomplished people. So I'm excited to sort of learn and take that next step in my career too. And who knows, I maybe wouldn't have got there without Survivor. So it's definitely a cool little segue.
Wow, congratulations on getting married and achieving such a such an incredible position as well because Warner is wow, it's exciting.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it.
Just a second, let me see what I have. I think we covered most of it, unless you want to add more of something.
No, I think that was great. I think
Mm,
those were awesome questions and I really appreciate them. And I think yeah, I got nothing else. So
okay.
that was awesome.
And where can our listeners find you, your social handles?
Yeah, yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Kyle Fraser. There's no E in my last name. Couldn't get that handle. So KYLEFRASR. And then you can find me on TikTok as Kai Fraser, spelled the right way, KYFRASCR. And anywhere in between. I'm also a lawyer, so you can find me on LinkedIn too. I'm sure that'll be easy. But for now, TikTok, Instagram, and TikTok are where I'm at.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Kyle. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you so much, Oya. It was an absolute pleasure.
Mine as well. Thank you.